to Durbania. I'm Durbin. This is my spoiler-free review for Snowden. While I was watching this movie, I couldn't get the movie Sully out of my head because that was the last movie I saw. It's kind of interesting that we got these two stories coming out. They're based on true stories, and they're based on events that are under a decade old. But as I get into Snowden here, I don't know. It was like there were parts of this movie that were really good. There were parts of this movie that just felt really long and dragged on. So let me just start with the parts of this movie that were really good. First and foremost, and I always like to dive into this first, it's the cast. But I obviously got to highlight the two stars, Joseph Gordon-Levitt portraying Snowden and Shailene Woodley playing Snowden's girlfriend. Because, that was fantastic acting. And really, it was on these two to carry the movie in the way that they did it. I mean, there's lots of other aspects and a lot of other actors that have to carry certain scenes, and I think they all carried it. But you know, it just centers around Snowden, which of course means you really get a lot of Shailene Woodley in this. And I just thought Shailene Woodley especially did a fantastic job. I say especially only because, I don't think she did a bad job in the Divergent series. I just personally didn't like the Divergent series. And seeing her in this, she is a great actress. She played a character totally different than that of the Divergent series, and she did a fantastic job with it. She played a very likable character, and when their relationship was on the ups and the downs and things like that, there were moments where I thought she was a jerk, but that's because we're getting the perspective of Snowden. But from her character's perspective, there's a reason she's acting the way she's acting, and I just thought she did a really good job with that. But overall, her character was very likable. She was very likable. Everything about it was really well done. And then Joseph Gordon-Levitt, the guy is a great actor. Now look, when I make my comments here, I'm not commenting on Snowden, I'm not commenting on the true story, I'm not commenting on any of that. I'm commenting on this movie, how this movie was put together and how this movie was structured. So I don't know anything about Snowden too much other than what you see in the media and things like that. And what I mean is I don't know about his personality traits, his mannerisms and things like that. But I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt did a great job portraying all of that because he was not acting like Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He took on a whole different character. His voice was different. The way he talked was different. His mannerisms were different. So I think he probably did a fantastic job portraying Snowden, just the real dude. It's what I think. I mean, he just did a fantastic job with it. So between these two characters, Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Shailene Woodley, they did a really good job doing this. I felt the chemistry between them. There was no point where that was lost on me. They just did a great job together. So I think those performances are great. Overall, I think it was directed pretty good. The cinematography was nice and all that stuff. So it had a lot of good things going for it. Another good thing that I think this movie definitely had was the tension between Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Shailene Woodley. Because here's something that, maybe I haven't thought about before until I saw this movie. Maybe you thought about it, I don't know. But the idea of he's got a classified job. So if he has a bad day, he can't come home and vent. He can't come home and tell his girlfriend about it. And so that was kind of an interesting dynamic because you got Shailene Woodley who, playing an amateur photographer. She's got these hopes and dreams and all these things. But her biggest thing is she really wants to connect to Snowden. But she can't really connect to Snowden because Snowden can't talk about this whole entire section of his life. And they did a really good job bringing out that tension where you have one person in the relationship who can't talk about an entire section of their life. You have Snowden who comes home and just plays video games because he's tired, he's beat, he's emotionally drained, he's mentally drained. Because throughout this movie, he has all these moral conundrums, and that's another thing they did a fantastic job with. At different levels, as he's climbing that ladder, going from the Army to the CIA to the NSA, and as he's climbing that ladder and learning and doing all these different things, he's really starting to see, whoa, they could do this, whoa, they could watch that. Wait, where's the oversight on this? Where's the accountability? I mean, so you see he's going through these different moral crises throughout the movie. And they do a good job because he keeps it internal. He keeps it inside. He doesn't really freak out at work. He does question at work. And there's a lot of interesting scenes with that. But then you have Joseph who's going through all this, but he can't bring that home to his girlfriend. So he's got a whole chunk of his life that he can't tell her. So he's coming home carrying the weight of the world, but he can't tell her what it is. He can't tell her about it because telling her would put her in danger on top of the fact he'd get all this jail time. So he can't say anything. And they did a really good job throwing that tension with their relationship on top of him going through all of this stuff in his mind, the stuff that you would want to talk through so bad with somebody, but you just can't. You can't! So I thought they did a great job of that. Here are the negatives of the movie. And again, I'm just talking about the movie and the movie structure. It was long. It was really long. I think this movie's it's like 2.5 hours long. And it just felt so much longer to me. I mean, the beginning part is slow, but I could deal with that because we're setting the stage. You know, we're trying to get the backstory and understand what's going on here. So I can understand that. And in fact, I was with it through a lot of that, but it was slow. It starts to pick up, but you know, it's not an action-packed movie. So all the tension is mostly just up in here. Another positive, I liked how it makes you think. Like, it brings up that conversation. So I thought that was kind of cool. Back to the negatives. So on the one hand, while I'm saying, yeah, a lot of that relationship stuff was a plus for the movie because it was so well acted and so well performed, and it did add a certain depth to it. At the same time, it was a negative because some of it just went on and on and on. Oh, and on. And then there's this whole section in the middle of the movie where he's sitting in the hotel room and he's alone with the documentary film girl, and they're just talking back and forth, and they're kind of showing you the flashbacks and stuff, but it felt like this cinematic movie became more of a documentary with Joseph Gordon-Levitt narrating the life of Snowden. And so rather than interesting things progressing, I mean, there's a few interesting things in there, but it was just so long. It just became so biography and so whatever. It's just like, oh my gosh. And I mean, it got to the point where even when interesting stuff started to pick back up when you get towards the end, I was looking at my watch and I was like, okay, the movie started at 7, 2.5 hours. It's 8:45. Oh man, I still got a while left. The redeeming factor in that, there was this dude in the theater and he just was making all kinds of noise during the movie, which if this was an Avenger movie, I probably would have been upset. But as it was, when this movie got really slow and boring, he had these moments where he'd just go, I kid you not. In the end, I think I'm going to give this movie 2.5 out of 5 stars. It does have a lot to it that is good. I like that it sparks the conversation. I like that it gets you thinking about, you know, those big things while you're watching the movie. I like aspects like that. I thought the acting was fantastic. I thought, you know, a lot of that was able to draw me in. But in the end, I think 2.5 hours was just too long for this movie. And bringing it back to Sully could have been a boring movie. But the way the story was told and these real life events and the way they got into the characters and the way they structured the story, it was told so well. And I'm not saying Snowden was told terribly, but it just didn't have that same structure to it. And I really did get very bored, like especially towards the middle, almost to the ending. That last stretch actually got back to being really good. If you saw Snowden, what did you think of the movie? Make sure to let me know in the comments how many stars you'd give it. Now, I know it's been a while since I've officially done a spoiler talk. I don't really feel like there's much to spoil with this because it's based on a true story and you could, you know, look up the history. But if you want to hear more stuff, more scenes specifically or whatever, if enough people let me know in the comments that they want a spoiler talk and to hear more about that, I will go ahead and do one. Otherwise, I really do feel like I said what really needs to be said about this movie. While you're there, make sure you hit that subscribe button because definitely doing a spoiler talk next week, doing the spoiler free and spoiler talk for Magnificent 7, and got some pretty cool things planned for that stuff coming up here when we get into that. So definitely hit that subscribe button. Be on top of all of that. I'm Durbin. Thank you for checking out Durbania.